No questions? How is that possible? I'm not going to lecture. You have to ask questions, or I'm just going to sit here. Explain the meaning of what? There's about a minute delay between when I say something and when it appears on your screen. So it's kind of slow. What is this? I don't understand. I try to support what? You want me to explain the meaning of what? You have to supply enough context. I'm not a mind reader. Anybody else? I'm waiting for questions. Oh, let's see. No, the internet's not messing up. Everything is fine. We have a good signal, several watchers. What is this? I don't understand how Shakti is everything, even Shiva. Well, she's not Shiva, but she's Shiva's form. Try to understand. There is a difference between a being and the being's form. The form is not the being. The form is simply the outer external aspect. So Shakti is the manifestation. She is the universe and everything in it. Shiva is the essence, the awareness, the unconditioned, non-dual awareness of awareness, unbounded, undifferentiated, without qualities, without names, without form. Shakti is name and form and qualities and boundaries and all of those things that are conditioned and limited. So you see, they're just opposite. That means all the forms of all the gods and goddesses are actually her. The example I like to give is that after a rainstorm, there are many small puddles If you have animals, they make hoof prints like cows or horses. They make little footprints, little small puddles like that. But when the sun rises or the moon rises, it's reflected in all of them simultaneously. So Shiva is the primordial awareness, the objectless awareness, non-dual awareness. Shakti is consciousness, which is dual because it has an object. And so she is both consciousness and its objects. Just like the sun is reflected in the puddles, consciousness is reflected in all the objects. So she is the manifestation. She is the universe. She is you and I. She is everything. There's nothing apart from her that is manifest. Shiva is unmanifest. And he's the source of everything, even Shakti. Is that clearer now? Well, I guess we scared away a bunch of people. We went from 8 or 9 viewers down to 5. I don't know what I said. Yeah, if there's some internet problem, it must be on your end, because on our end here, it's fine. We have a good high data rate, green board. YouTube is happy. It says excellent connection. So maybe you're having trouble on your end. Oh boy, a big question. Who is this? Let's see. Alexander. Is Shiva basically the same as the same experience of nibbana in a Buddhist context? Yeah, sort of. The nibbana, or enlightenment, is a state. Shiva is a being. You get the difference? He is the being of that state. Nibbana, moksha, enlightenment, liberation, whatever you want to call it. The point is that Shiva is everything. Consciousness, or more than consciousness, awareness is everything. Without awareness, there isn't anything. Just think about it for a minute. Look around you. You see so many things. But without awareness, you wouldn't even know that you're consciousness, that you're conscious. So awareness is fundamental, and awareness is Shiva. The objects of awareness are Shakti. That's the easiest way to understand it. Let's see, somebody else said something? Oh, Shakti is also beyond the mundane. See, Shiva is called the Nirguna Brahman. Brahman without qualities. Shakti is called Saguna Brahman. Brahman with qualities. So they are both beyond the mundane. They are both Brahman. But the difference between Shiva and Shakti is the fundamental duality. The fundamental difference from which all other differences are derived. So try to understand it this way. Shakti is the quality of everything we perceive, and Shiva is the essence. Is that clear? Let's see, somebody else said something. A genius, is that it? Misspelled. Genius. That's embarrassing, huh? Misspelled genius. A distinction between a state of being and being itself. Well, yeah. Just like you have ice cream, and then you have the different flavors of ice cream. You know, ice cream without flavor is pretty plain. Not even vanilla. It's even less than vanilla. Vanilla is also a flavoring. But Shakti is like all the different varieties of flavors, and Shiva is like the ice cream. It's another example. Let's see, then there's another. It seems to me this existence is like a continuous love-making session between Shiva and Shakti. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. It is their dance of love. And in the beginning of the universe, when it's time to create the multitude of living beings, Shiva and Shakti make love for 1,000 years of the demigods, which is a long, long time. It's like, 10 million years of our time. So they are the original tantric couple. And by the way, just an aside, a lot of people make big talk about Tantra, but unless Tantra is practiced as an offering to Shiva and Shakti, it's not the real thing. It's just sexual indulgence. It'll just, bring you lower on the scale of consciousness rather than higher. So authentic Tantra is done as an offering to Shiva and Shakti. Let's see. The next one. What of things that are beyond our awareness that are not Shiva? What? Shiva is in my awareness. Shiva is my awareness. He's your awareness too. He is the self. Ramana Maharshi talks about the self. And we all heard of self-realization. Well, what is this self? That's Shiva. Shiva is in everything. And so is Shakti. Shiva is the being. Shakti is the state of that being. So there's no need to wonder about things that are outside of our awareness, because when we become self-realized, everything is within our awareness. There is nothing unknown. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna, and I'm trying to remember the chapter. It might be the 14th chapter, I'm not sure. He says, now I shall describe that knowledge, knowing which there remains nothing further to be known. That knowledge, knowing which there is nothing further to be known. So if there's any incompleteness of our knowledge or consciousness, that means we have not attained self-realization. That means we're still in conditioned consciousness. Or more precisely, we're identified with conditioned consciousness rather than pure awareness, which is Shiva. Shivoham. I am Shiva. This is a famous prayer by Shankaracharya, and that's the refrain. Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham. Just like the famous Vedic Mahavakya. Aham Brahmasmi means I am Brahman. It comes from the Upanishads. So it's one thing to just say it as a mantra or as a philosophical statement. It's another thing to actually realize it and know for certain that there is nothing outside of our awareness. The Ishopanishad invocation begins Aum Purnamadam Purnamabdha Purnameva Vashishyate Purnameva Vashishyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Aum, Brahman, is Purnam, complete. So when we realize Brahman, we become the complete. There's no incompleteness. There's no more boundaries, no more edges, no more unknowns. Nothing more beyond. There's a famous description of the Buddha. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, svaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Gone beyond, beyond. Huh? This is the Bodhisattva. That he is so gone. There is no more beyond. That's complete knowledge. That's Purna. Purna means complete, full, all-encompassing, all-knowing. That's self-realization. So, there's more questions. Got on a roll there. Hi, Nick. Let's see. I know this is all a bit of topic. Or maybe you mean off topic. But can you tell me how to get more in touch with the Divine Mother? After feeling connected to an Abrahamic father, my whole life is a bit awkward to switch up. Well, you chant her mantras. We have a whole long series, which is still incomplete, on Lalita Sahasranama. There's 1,000 names. You can download the document. There's a link in every, or just about every video in that series. You can download the complete Lalita Sahasranama, and then you have 1,000 names. Is that enough? So just chant those names, and she will respond. This is the magic. This is the mystery of mantras. That when you call out to God or Goddess using their names, using the esoteric formulas given in the scriptures, they respond. Huh? And it's not you. It's not imagination or projection. It's real. I could tell a whole bunch of stories, but I'm not going to go into it because it really is off topic. I guess Ribhu Gita is so esoteric, nobody can even think of a question. That's out there, man. Let's see. Jacob Hoy. Hi, Jacob. So with karma, any action done without a doer, without being attached into the uncreate fire, what's the point? It's not complete. Although I already feel the connection, I also feel clumsy while praying to the mother. Well, there's no need for that. She's your mother. And she is really a cool chick. She's very fun-loving. She's so compassionate. Huh? Her desire is that every living being should attain enlightenment. And she arranges the whole creation so that it's possible. She creates all the laws of nature and laws of karma that govern everything and everybody. And it's all designed in such a way as to bring us eventually to enlightenment. It just depends on us, how quickly we're willing to surrender. So if there's any feeling of awkwardness, you have to look into it. You have to see where that's coming from. Maybe you have, I don't know, some traumatic issues related to mother or something like that. Tell me about your mother. No, I'm not going to head shrink you, don't worry. But she is everybody's mother, and she has that mood. You know, mother's always willing to forgive. So just approach her with humility and beg for her grace, and you're sure to get it. So, questions. Let's see. Ben says, I get how I can clean my karma, but how can I stop producing any new karma? I suppose it is by doing nothing, but how can I put that in my daily life practice? Good question. Offer the results of all your activities in sacrifice to God or Goddess, Ishtadevata, your favorite form of God, whatever that is, whoever that is. So, in other words, don't do things for yourself. Even you can do the same things, but offer it to God. Like, I love to play with technology. Huh? If you watch the behind the scenes video today, you get to see how I love to play with technology. Man, I wish I had these tools back when I was going to music school and then later when I was a professional composer. Man, I could have made some dent in the universe, let me tell you. But anyway, by playing with technology now is not karmic because it's all done in service. Service to God, to Goddess, and to the devotees. It's all offered. I don't get anything from this. You notice I'm not asking for donations. I'm not creating any organizations. Huh? I don't even have a little ashram or anything. You know? I have to pay for the equipment and the bandwidth, plus my own living expenses and so on. See? I'm not doing this for any selfish gain. I'm doing it as a service. That service attitude is what leads to the next stage of bhakti yoga, love of God. See? It's like a plant. You plant the seed. When it comes up, you water it, you weed it, you take care of it. Maybe you prune it here and there if it gets out of line. You give it space and air to breathe. And then, slowly, slowly, it grows until it bears fruit. Now, there's nothing you did to make it bear fruit. It happened all by itself. You simply created the conditions in which it could grow. And you tended it and protected it and served it until it could provide the food that you needed. So, it's the same way with spiritual life. The mantras and the instructions of the scriptures and the guru are the seed. But then you have to plant that seed and water it and weed it and protect it and guide it and nurture it until it can grow to the point where it provides the fruits. But you are not the doer. It's a blessing. Okay, questions are mounting here. What's going on? Everyone must act according to qualities acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So you can't escape by doing nothing. That's true. I mean, just try it. You sit in a silent, dark room and do nothing. Let's see how long you can hold out. But actually, you're still doing something. You're thinking, you're feeling. You're aware that you're sitting in a dark, silent room. And you have thoughts about that. And after a few minutes of doing nothing, the mind starts to jump all over the universe. Isn't it? That's why most people's so-called meditation is just a show. It's not meditation at all. You're trying to fool yourself or fool others into thinking that you're meditating. But thinking is not meditating. When thinking stops, that's the beginning of meditation. But how do you stop thinking? Well, you have to fix the mind on something. But how do you fix the mind? Because the mind is very mercurial by nature. And the more you try to force it, the more it will slip out of your grasp and go jumping all over the place. So you have to trick the mind by forming a relationship with God as the all-attractive. Whatever you find beautiful, lovely, attractive, aesthetic, whatever you admire, whatever you think is great or cool or whatever, see those qualities in God, or see God as the source of those qualities. And that, combined with development of service attitude, which is like watering the plant, will eventually yield the fruit, which is love of God. And then that can develop further into actual meditation, when the mind becomes so attracted by the beauty and awesome good qualities of God or Goddess, then it becomes controlled automatically. It wants to think of God. Just like if you give a monkey some fruit, it stops jumping around and eats the fruit. So you feed the mind with impressions based on the scriptures, mantras, and your own personal service. That, over time, will mature into the higher states of yoga. So let's see what else we've got here. Dealing with toxic women makes it hard for me sometimes. I can't watch the news because they always have some lady, I guess, but they have such a hard voice and such a sharp sounding delivery. I can't listen to it. You know, it's like, I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but as far as I can tell, the so-called women's lib is just a license for women to start doing the same nonsense as men have done for hundreds of years. And it begins with hardening the heart and sharpening the mind and arguing and, criticizing and all this stuff. I don't think that's feminine at all. And it's off-putting, tremendously off-putting to me. When I hear someone talking like that, which in the East is very rare, or comparatively rare, still there's a few. But when I hear somebody talking like that, I run the other way. I literally go the other way. I don't want to hear it. It's ugly. I mean, men at least have the excuse, as a friend of mine who's a therapist used to call it, testosterone poisoning. You know, but with women it's completely mental, and so they don't have the excuse. And yes, it's toxic. Just as toxic masculinity. You know, I got a lot of flack for saying that I don't accept the anti-vaxxer movement or mentality. But what I didn't say is that I also don't accept the vaccine fascist mentality. Like throwing people into quarantine against their will. And, you know, in Germany now they're even going, I hear in Australia also, they're even like rounding up unvaccinated people and putting them in camps and stuff. This is crazy. Just as crazy as resisting getting vaccines for no good reason. So it's the same with this feminism. It's actually a misnomer, you know. Feminism has come to mean masculinization of women, along with emasculinization of men. So I'm not buying it. But on the other hand, toxic masculinity is also a thing. And I also don't buy that. After this, let's go out and have some beers, you know? It's bullshit. Okay. So let's see. Can you give a brief explanation of the difference, I guess, between Devi Bhagavatam versus the Krishna Bhagavatam? I'm thinking of putting the Krishna one down. Would you also recommend the Ribu Gita over the Krishna one? Bhagavad Gita, you mean? No. Each scripture has a specific place and importance and use on the path. For people in dualistic consciousness, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate. For people who are in Vaidhi Bhakti, rules and regulations, Dvaita Vada, Karma Yoga, this is the ultimate scripture. And the Devi Bhagavatam, which you can download and read from any one of our series on the Devis, is simply the feminine counterpart of that. But the difference between the two is that the Devi path may be dualistic on the outside, but it's non-dual on the inside. And I suppose the same is actually true of the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's much less obvious, much harder to realize, especially because the commentary is so forcefully dualistic. And also Bhagavad Gita, again, is on the dualistic platform, Karma Yoga, Dvaita Vada, Jagrat consciousness, and the Ribu Gita is on a much higher level. Ribu Gita is for those who already know that non-duality is the ultimate, and who are ready to do the process, to realize it. So, when you are ready for Ribu Gita, you will automatically lose your taste for Bhagavad Gita. When you're ready for Srimad Devi Bhagavatam, you'll automatically lose your taste for Srimad Bhagavatam. See? Until then, you should keep studying them, because obviously they came to you for a reason. You know? Don't try to jump ahead or jump up beyond your actual state of realization. That's how people get messed up. That's how people fall down, sometimes violently, into lower states and get all kinds of karmic problems. So let's see. I'm not keeping up with the questions very well here. What's next? How can I offer the results of my actions as a sacrifice to God? Well, we've gone over that in previous series. There's one series called Authentic Karma Yoga, and there's another series called Spiritual Nourishment. If you look up those series, playlists on YouTube, they're full of detailed instructions, mantras, paraphernalia, rituals, prayers, all kinds of facility for making offerings to God. Okay? If you have a real spiritual teacher, and if you are a real disciple, and you actually approach your teacher for instruction, the teacher will show you all of this. So that's how I learned it. Let's see. Alexander, how do we honor the feminine inside of us, though, especially as men? I have a feeling that the feminine inside of me is wounded. SK? I don't know what that means. Oh, somehow. Okay. Well, the Western culture in general, and business culture in particular, emphasizes the masculine at the expense of the feminine. We are all trained from the first day of school, or even before that, to look outward through the senses and think of ourselves as the doer, to identify with the body and the senses and the identities and nomenclature, like our name, our family, our country, our religion, and so on, which are just labels. And that, you have to go out there and seize the day, right? You have to take the initiative. It's all very masculine oriented. And of course, that has its place. But there also has to be room for the inward looking mind or attention that does not identify with the body or the senses or the mind or the labels. See? That is passive, that simply accepts what is happening. Doesn't try to force things, doesn't try to become the doer. Huh? That's the feminine within. And that is very much suppressed in society today. Like I was just talking about feminism, how even feminism has become a misnomer because it's training women to be more masculine. So, there is everything within us, because we are Brahman, ultimately. So everything is there, Shiva and Shakti, masculine and feminine, active and passive, will and surrender. Both are there. It's not, See, Western thinking is based on Aristotelian logic, which is black and white, binary, 1 or 0, right or wrong, good or bad, saved or sinner in Christian theology. So when you go to school, you have to get the right answer, and anything other than that is the wrong answer. So this duality is pounded into us from the start. But the reality is not like that. Reality is a spectrum of shades of gray. Nothing is clearly one or the other. It's always some ambiguous mix. See? And this urge for closure or clarity or the fundamental binary answer of right or wrong, yes or no, good or bad. This is one of the things that keeps us in illusion. Because nature is ambiguous. Nature doesn't crave closure. Nature is willing to sit with ambiguity, is willing to listen without judgment and speak without any particular aim. See, watch nature. Nature will teach you a lot. And especially it will show up how distorted our thinking is. So you have to go within yourself. That's the first move of the feminine nature, is to go within rather than going without. Going within and looking at yourself and contemplating what's going on inside is primarily a feminine kind of activity. This should be cultivated to bring the masculine and feminine into balance. Otherwise, the culture is going to condition us to be hyper-masculine. This toxic masculinity is simply masculinity without the proper balance. I like that ethics of aesthetics, do what is beautiful. Yeah, do what is beautiful. Yeah. Now, the thing is, people have very different ideas of what is beautiful. And this gets into an area of spiritual knowledge called rasa tattva. Rasa means the sweet essence or the nectar, that which is enjoyable. And tattva means a system of truth or knowledge. So there's a system of truth or knowledge about that which is enjoyable in different tastes. So there are 5 primary rasas: neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parenthood, and conjugal love. And there are 7 secondary rasas: humor, anger, oh boy, it's been so long since I talked about this, I forget them all. But anyway, there are 5 primaries, 7 secondary rasas. Some are more compatible than others. But this anger, for example, is a rasa. Sometimes we see the avatars, if you read the scriptures, they get angry and they destroy stuff, But they do it for the purpose, the ultimate purpose of self-realization. So it's beautiful, if you can imagine that. So to some people, anger is beautiful, fighting is beautiful. For some people, lovemaking is beautiful. For other people, service is beautiful. For the Buddha, neutrality is beautiful. One time, it wasn't the Buddha himself, but it was one of his chief disciples, Sariputta. He said, this nibbana, this extinguishment, is beautiful. It's so blissful. And then one of the monks who was hearing him said, Well, what's so blissful about it if nothing is felt? And Sariputta said, oh, that's exactly what is blissful, that nothing is felt. See, this is neutrality, the ultimate neutrality. So for some people, that is the ultimate beauty. For other people, it's being a servant or a friend or a parent or a lover, or being a fighter, or being a stand-up comedian. So those who have mastered the science of rasa are comfortable with all these emotions. They find the beauty in them, and they use them appropriately to bring themselves and help bring others to self-realization. These are all topics that, I could do a whole video series on. Let's see. Alexander. What? No, Ben, you got it backwards. Yang is male. Yin is feminine. Yang is active. Feminine is receiving. Okay. Yeah, okay. Alexander got it. Okay. Namaste, namaste. So, when one attains enlightenment and does action to burn the previous prarabdha karma, do they further become the doer of extinguishing the previous karma? No. No, we can't extinguish karma. We don't have authority over karma. Goddess does. See, it's her system. She makes the laws of the universe. It's actually aupurusheya, means beyond human intelligence. So we aren't the ones to extinguish the karma, but we are the ones who perform akarma or naishkarma, the actions dedicated to the Supreme that have no karmic result. And when we perform a sufficient amount of that, then we become qualified to have our previous karma erased. But we don't do that. Goddess does that. Just like she bestows enlightenment. That's not something we do. It's something that we receive when we become qualified for it. So another question. Can you talk about the difference between the bliss of nibbana and the bliss of bhakti? The fact that nothing is felt in nibbana points to a difference between the two. As in bhakti, love is felt. Yeah, bhakti is dual. Love has an object. Therefore, the bliss of bhakti is on the level of vishishtadvaitavada, means conditioned non-duality. We know that ultimately we are one with Brahman, but we haven't realized it yet. We are still somewhat conditioned by duality. So that's all right. We take up bhakti as a way to express our love for the self. There's a beautiful passage in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that the wife is dear, not because of the wife, but because of the self within the wife. Similarly, the husband, the son, the house, the family, the possessions, the money, the titles, this, that, are all dear, not because of themselves, but because of the self within them. The self is dear, not the manifestations. See, and this points up why, for example, we talk about the soul outliving the body. That the body may fall down, the body may pass away, but the soul lives on. The essence of the person, the consciousness, the being, survives the death of the body. This is a central tenet of every religion there is. So the reason is that we make a distinction, and that love that we feel bridges that distinction between the self and the other. And in its highest development, that distinction between self and other disappears. That's pure love. Ananya bhakti. Ananya means the other. Ananya means there is no other. One time, Ramana Maharshi was asked, how should we treat others? Probably the questioner was expecting him to say something like, oh, we should be kind, we should be loving, or something like that. But what he said was, there are no others. There is only the self. And this is the central point of Ribu Gita. There is only the self. Everything else only appears to exist. It's Maya, that which is not. So when we develop this highest form of bhakti, Ananya bhakti, then meditation happens automatically and self-realization is within our grasp. Huh? So let's see, not to miss. Any questions? Nestor, how do we know that Brahma Granthi, Vishnu Granthi, it's been left behind? Oh boy. Well, first you have to know what they are. Brahma Granthi means attachment to the body, attachment to pleasurable physical sensations. It's located just above the solar plexus, between the solar plexus and the heart. Most people live their entire lives below the Brahma Granthi, isn't it? This is what we call pashu, animalistic humans. They have no yoga, they have no connection with God. They only know the physical senses, physical activities, and physical pleasures and like that. But when someone penetrates the Brahma Granthi, then they start to experience something beyond. The heart begins to open. They begin to speak because the two chakras between the Brahma Granthi and the Vishnu Granthi, the two chakras are the heart chakra and the throat chakra. So the heart begins to open to spiritual emotions, and the person begins to speak of spiritual things. And because that way, these chakras are now free to develop, the energy can flow. It goes through the Brahma Granthi and develops and opens the higher chakras, the heart and the throat. Then the Vishnu Granthi is just above the throat chakra, and this represents attachment to a certain emotion. This is again gets into rasa tattva, that people have an attachment to a specific feeling or emotion. Some people like neutrality. Some people like servitorship. Some like friendship, parenthood, conjugal love, or so on and so forth. So, because this is such a deep attachment, one develops a relationship with God in that particular mood. And the bhakti yogi, when they leave the body, can go to a higher planet to be with their Ishta Devata in the mood that is typified or exemplified by this Vishnu Granthi. But then, when one goes beyond Vishnu Granthi into the Vivartavada, into the third eye chakra, then one drops this attachment to a particular emotion. Although, of course, it's still perceived as pleasurable, but it's not an obsession anymore. It's not an ultimate anymore. One sees beyond it. One sees beyond individuality. One sees that there is a ground which is perfectly transcendental, not subject to any conditioning or quality. This is the beginning of meditation. See, this is why meditation can't be faked. It can't be done as an effort of will. And if you try it, you'll see, you'll fail. That doesn't mean you should stop trying, because every time you try, it becomes a little bit easier, and you begin to see why you can't do it, and eventually you pierce through this attachment to a particular emotion, and then you can meditate. So finally, there's the Rudra Granthi, just above the third eye. And the Rudra Granthi means attachment to form, to being, to consciousness itself. So yes, when you go beyond the Rudra Granthi, you go beyond even consciousness. This is a very advanced topic. We talk about it in the series on Ramana Maharshi's books, Uladu Narpadu. Okay, so if you're interested in that topic, you should go watch that series. Let's see, any more here? Can you say more on humor or rasa? It is so rarely discussed in holy books and even frowned upon, but such a huge part of our lives. Yeah, absolutely. I did make a series on rasa. What is it called? I think it's called Bhava Tattva or something like that. I think the word bhava was definitely part of the title. Because bhava means the manifestation of rasa. See, when a person attains rasa, they become ecstatic. And they begin to experience ecstatic symptoms, like what we call goosebumps, chicken skin. The proper name is horripilation. It means you get chills or feeling of energy running through the body. Oftentimes there are tears, choking up of the voice, or breaking of the voice. Sometimes one begins to talk nonsense, or dance, or sing, or write poetry, or make some kind of art, devotional art. In the really, really intense stages of ecstasy, sometimes there's faltering of the heartbeat. perspiration, copious perspiration. Even one can become stunned, like fainting. And of course, the ultimate symptom of ecstasy is death, leaving the body completely. Not out of pain, but out of too much ecstasy. This is rasa. So, if you are worshiping God in some rasa and you start to get these symptoms, don't be afraid. There's nothing wrong. In fact, it means that you're really on the path. It's a good symptom, good indication you're making spiritual progress. Yeah. So don't try to resist it. Although if you're around other people, sometimes it's a good idea to keep the symptoms covered until you can be in private and enjoy them thoroughly. So let's see, we're almost out of time. No, we are out of time, actually. Do you agree that attachment to the bliss is one of the biggest obstacles to full realization? It depends, There are so many of these questions that the answer depends on your point of view, your state of consciousness, your degree of realization, and so on. Especially in the beginning of the path, at the interface or the sandhya, the joining between karma yoga and bhakti yoga, the bliss is absolutely necessary ingredient to further progress. Because, just performing rituals and following rules and regulations is pretty dry. So we need that bliss to spur us onward, and especially to focus the mind. Because like I said, the mind tends to jump all over the place. And the only way it can be focused is by beauty, by attraction. Spontaneous attraction to something beautiful. So that's rasa. That's duality. And it's okay that it's duality. It's conditioned duality. Vishishta Dvaitavada. Try to understand. Svapna consciousness, dream consciousness. See, karma yoga is done in Jagrat consciousness, waking consciousness, in which the world, the body, the ego, the mind appear real. Bhakti is done in dream consciousness, which is why we can become attached in bhakti to a manifestation of God and pastimes of God that are just like inconceivable to others. I don't want to get into a whole digression, but one's rasa with God should be completely original. It should not be simply a copy of something you read in a book. That's inauthentic. That's just imitation. You shouldn't just copy, but you should find an original form of relationship with your chosen Ishta Devata. Then you can experience the rasa. Then you can go deeply into bhakti, right? And the bliss will increase to the point where you don't need it anymore. See, if you cultivate bhakti to the point where you can pretty much experience bliss whenever you want, after a while, it doesn't seem like such a valuable thing anymore, Like if you have a $100 bill, that's all the money you have. It seems like a big deal. Oh boy, $100 bill. Wow. A Benjamin. But if you have $1 million or 10 million or $1 billion, $100 bill is nothing. See? So when you reach actual bliss, it changes your relationship with ecstasy. Ecstasy becomes just such a normal thing that you don't feel anymore you have to strive for it, because you can have it whenever you want. Thus, it loses its extreme value, and it just becomes like normal part of life. That's how you lose the attachment to it. It's not like you deny it or try to stop it. But it just becomes like, that's the way it is. Okay, one last question. Swamiji, I've been having nightmares. Yow. I always see myself surrounded by water or flood or tsunami. I drown or I watch them approaching me all the time. Can you explain why? No. Only you can explain why. Because only you have access to the deepest parts of your mind. But I would say, just off the top of my head, it sounds like you're afraid of being overwhelmed. You're afraid of ecstasy. You're afraid of rasa. You're afraid that the world is going to, give you some kind of experience that you can't handle. Or the God is going to, You have to look into this in yourself. I'm just guessing. It doesn't mean anything. Don't take it serious. But if I had a dream like that, that's what I would think. Especially if it repeats. To have a nightmare once or even twice, it's no big deal. But if it comes regularly, like, dude, go see a therapist. Okay. When I'm in deep meditation, I get very strong waves of chills originating from my spine and flow out through my head. Sometimes I tear up. Well, I just explained that, didn't I? That's rasa, that's bhava, ecstatic symptoms. Okay, so we've reached the end of the hour. Thank you very much. I really love these live streams. Gives me a chance to interact with you all. And the exchange of energy is very enlivening. And now more people are getting in touch with me to have Zoom conversations. This is also very exciting for me. And you notice I've gone back to doing a couple of little lecture videos because now I have the energy. Now I feel like we're more in touch and I have a better insight into what you're thinking and feeling. And that really helps me to make the other kind of videos. And have a confidence that I know who I'm speaking to. So again, thank you very much. Same time, same station, next Saturday night. Well, it's night here. I don't know, in California, I guess it's early morning. In Europe, it's in the afternoon. But please join us again. We'll be doing this every Saturday, unless there's really bad weather and the wireless internet isn't available. In which case I'll make an announcement beforehand. So see you again next week. Aum Tat Sat. Aum Shakti Aum.